Just a couple of things before I go into my Week 9 fantasy sit and start. Number one, my tentative schedule for this special November theme for the Schleg Daddy TV channel called The Fall Ball. The tentative schedule is down in the description box down below. So that way if you want to know what's coming up every day during the month of November, that's where you're going to find out. Number two, if somebody would do me a favor, because maybe I'm being a little lazy to do it, or sometimes I forget to keep track of who I suggest to sit or start each week. Would somebody mind sitting there? I saw somebody did it last week. Would somebody mind going through and just use a standard scoring format? That's fine. And keep track on a weekly basis and post it after week 9, and week 10 and so on and so forth on the video to let me know how I did with the people I told you to sit compared to the people I told you to start in terms of number of points that either added to you or subtracted from you. I'd appreciate that very much. And number 3, remember again, you can put your lineup and trade and waiver wire free agent questions in the comment section, down below, and I'll answer as many of them as I can. So now let's talk about Week 9 of this 2013 NFL season, the fantasy football season that is, and talk about players you should sit and start this week. A couple of quarterbacks to sit might be Joe Flacco of the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cleveland Browns. When you look at this matchup, this reeks of what might be a very physical, very close to the vest AFC North matchup. This looks like the type of game that Flacco might throw for perhaps 180 yards and 1 touchdown and maybe a pick. I'll say that, and of course he'll blow up, but I'm just saying the matchup suggests you might want to sit him. And Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers, you might sit there and say, hey, I'm going to bench Matt Ryan. Well, you look at it, he wasn't very good last week, and yeah, he's had a little trouble in the past with the Arizona Cardinals, but right now, you look at Matt Ryan, the Falcons are, 2-5. They're not looking good. He's missing weapons like Julio Jones and perhaps again in Week 9, Roddy White on the outside. And the fact that they don't play very well on the road, the Falcons as a whole, and in particular Matt Ryan, you might want to consider sitting him this week. Yeah, quarterbacks to look at starting. Phillip Rivers of the San Diego Chargers taking on the Washington Redskins. The Redskins defense is a complete boo-boo, As a result, the matchup is very good. You should go with Phillip Rivers and feel relatively confident that he's going to give you a good return this week. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Nick Foles of the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Oakland Raiders. The Eagles are a real fucked up team this year. They haven't won at home, but they're like 3-1 on the road, which suggests to me that Foles, it looks like he's playing this week, he might actually put up a halfway decent day against the Raiders defense. The Eagles' offense the past couple of games has not looked very good. I just get a funny feeling that maybe they'll play better this week. And like I said, they're on the road. They're not at home. So the Eagles are a much better team for whatever damn fluke reason on the road as opposed to at home. Let's look at the running back position. One's to sit this week. Trent Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Houston Texans. Richardson really hasn't done much since he got to Indianapolis. There are probably better running backs to go with right now, even though he's a very good buy low candidate in terms of a trade, a guy maybe you take a risk on that gets it going towards the end of the season when it comes time for the fantasy playoffs and you get some big-time points out of him. So he's a guy to sit this week, but he's a guy that maybe it's worth you exploring trading for in your leagues. Steven Jackson of the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers. Steven Jackson looked terrible last week, absolutely terrible. And if he was 100%, oh God, he's 30, he's washed up. Now, to be fair, he was facing a very, very good Arizona Cardinals defense, but Steven Jackson did not look good last week whatsoever. I'd avoid playing him in your lineup right now unless you absolutely have to. D'Angelo Williams of the Carolina Panthers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. When you look at D'Angelo Williams, not only does he have Cam Newton that robs him of some goal line carries, he also has Mike Tolbert, and now it looks like Jonathan Stewart is coming back this week and going to get into the fold. It's just going to mean a decreased workload for D'Angelo Williams, along with the fact that he doesn't have much in the way of goal line work. He's a guy to avoid, frankly. Running backs to start this week. Eddie Lacy of the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears. Lacy's the type of running back that the Bears could struggle with a little bit, and the Bears' defense is very banged up. It could lead to a very big day for Eddie Lacy. Darren McFadden of the Oakland Raiders taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles' defense has played a little better the past couple of games, but they're still not all that good. And McFadden, he's been a productive fantasy player this year, both as a rusher and as a pass receiver. So as a result, I would anticipate another big day for him. So he's somebody, if you're not sure, you should go ahead and start him this week. And then DeMarco Murray of the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Minnesota Vikings. It looks like Murray's going to be back. Looks like he's relatively healthy, and he's facing a very bad Vikings defense. If you've got him on your bench and you've had to go without him the last week or two because of injury, secondary, I think you should feel relatively confident putting him back into your starting lineup for week number 9. Now let's move on to the wide receiver position. Starting off with wide receivers you should consider sitting this week. Marcus Colston of the Saints taking on the Jets. Colston hasn't been very good the past few weeks. The Jets' defense is pretty good. Colston isn't going to be going man-to-man against D. Milner, so as a result, I think Colston's due for another bad day, so sit him. Vincent Jackson of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The bottom line is he's going to face off against Sherman or Browner. Not a good matchup. Avoid, avoid, avoid. Brandon Marshall, the Chicago Bears, taking on the Green Bay Packers on Monday night. I've seen the Packers do a good job in the past of trying to take Brandon Marshall out of the Bears' game plan by double teaming him with safety help over the top or another corner in the slot, whatever the case might be. They've done a good job in the past of game planning against Brandon Marshall. There are probably safer options out there, and especially with Josh McCown as the starter this week. You look at wide receivers to start this week. Terrence Williams of the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Miles Austin not in the equation. The Minnesota Vikings secondary is very banged up. Three of their opening day starters on defense are not in the secondary, so due to injury. So it looks like it could be a good matchup for Terrence Williams. I hesitate to tell you to start him only because he's had this streak of consecutive games with a touchdown, and he didn't have a ton of production last week other than the big long touchdown. But the matchup is really damn good. Lance Moore of the Saints taking on the New York Jets. This is the same Jets defense that a week ago gave up 4 touchdowns and over 100 yards receiving to Marvin Jones. So whoever's lined up as the number 2 corner for the Jets in Week 9 could see a lot of targets his way and could see a lot of work, and that could mean a very big day for Lance Moore. So he came back last week, had a couple of catches, got a touchdown. Moore is a frustrating player to have on your fantasy team because 1 week he'll put up phenomenal numbers, and the next week, 2 weeks, he won't do a damn thing. Golden Tate of the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think Darrelle Revis has been all that good this year, frankly. And now with Sidney Rice being out for the year, and you look at Percy Harvin still not back. For some reason, the Seahawks really seemed to fall in love last week with throwing the ball a lot, which could mean a lot of opportunities for Golden Tate. So, again, he's a guy to look at starting this week. And Jarrett Boykin of the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears. And to me, this is with or without James Jones in the starting lineup. Jarrett Boykin is the type of receiver that the Bears traditionally struggle to match up with, particularly if he lines up in the slot a lot, which if James Jones does actually play, you primarily would see Boykin out of the slot. So in that Randall Cobb type of role, he could be due for a very big day against a depleted, not 100% Chicago Bears defense, and in particular secondary. Now we'll move on to the tight end position. Start off with the ones you should sit this week. Kyle Rudolph of the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Ponder starting again this week, which means Rudolph's not going to see a lot of opportunities, I don't think, come his way. So, it's not worth taking the chance of him laying a big, fat 1 or 2 points in your lineup on you. Martellus Bennett of the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers. Bennett, after a hot start, has kind of tapered off a little bit the past few weeks. Again, with McCown starting, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's probably just better options for you to trot out there than Martellus Bennett this week. Tight ends to start this week. Jordan Reed of the Washington Redskins taking on the San Diego Chargers. The bottom line is Jordan Reed, I think, is a must-start from here on going forward. He's an explosive type of weapon that you can line up all over the place, and RG3 is going to start to understand how much he needs to get this guy involved in the passing game. Garrett Graham of the Houston Texans taking on the Indianapolis Colts in an offense where they love to check down the ball. You've got a young quarterback, an undrafted Case Keenum, starting again this week. So Graham could see some opportunities, and all it takes is 1 red zone target, 1 touchdown, which Graham's had several of this year, for him to be a productive fantasy star for you this week. And then a flyer here, somebody you could go with if you need a bye week cover. Andrew Corliss of the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears. When you look at the Packers' tight end situation, Finley's out for the year, maybe for his career, who knows. Somebody's going to get some targets at tight end, and he might very well be one of them. So, if you have any other questions for me about your fantasy lineups, go ahead and put them in the comment section down below, and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can before game time tomorrow.